meeting. First up is the mayor's opening address.
Thank you and good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank everybody who came, especially Chief Martel for moral support. I want to start today by acknowledging the impact of the fire on Katlo-Deche First Nation. Our neighbors and friends have lost homes, buildings, and the land that they live off of. Their strong culture will persevere through their rebuilds, and our government and community will be there to support them. This is my first public opportunity to speak to you all since we had to declare a state of emergency and evacuate Hay River due to a nearby forest fire. At the time, we were hopeful that people would be back home within a few days. Mother Nature had different ideas. The combination of extremely dry conditions, next to no rain, warm temperatures, and unpredictable winds complicated the efforts to bring this fire under control quickly. We know that everyone wants to come home. We know this has been extremely stressful on so many levels, and we are doing everything we can to get you back home as soon as it is safe to do so. We had a safe evacuation, and we are not going to risk bringing people back too soon. There are a lot of mixed messages out there in terms of when we should allow people back into the community. To be clear, we will be relying on the advice of the forest fire experts when it comes to ending the evacuation. When they tell us it is safe for people to return, we will act quickly to end the evacuation. So much has been happening in the background during this emergency. Today we'll update you on that activity and take this opportunity to thank people who have been working to save our communities. ECC will be providing a separate update on the status of their efforts to contain the forest fire. We are beyond grateful to have such a dedicated team fighting the fire for us. We have been in constant contact with the GNWT, Premiers Cochrane and Minister Thompson, as well as our local MLAs have communicated with us on a regular basis. The GNWT met today to discuss financial support for evacuees. If you have not already registered through one of the many registration methods, please do so today so they can ensure that you are on the evacuation list. Information on how to register is available on the town's website and Facebook page. Our Community Emergency Management Committee met at least once a day since this emergency started. The collaboration and support from this group is unbelievable, and we are so appreciative of the contributions from everyone who serves on this committee. The Hay River Volunteer Fire Department, under the leadership of Chief Wright, have worked tirelessly day and night to ensure that any sparks that might make it across the river were quickly extinguished. They also work and continue to work on prevention measures to safeguard the community. Our Town Public Works Department has been focusing on prevention in extreme risk areas, placing sprinklers on residential roofs, and protecting town assets. The town's recreation department was instrumental in the evacuation and care and comfort of people, starting with the preparations to receive Katlo-Deche First Nation evacuees and ongoing during the evacuation. Town administration played a critical role in the Emergency Response Committee, and senior leadership by the SAO and Assistant SAO made extraordinary efforts to ensure that communication was timely and accurate. Media were also instrumental in helping us get our message out, and a big thank you to them. So many individuals, nonprofit organizations, businesses, and Indigenous governments have stepped up to assist us, assist evacuees, assist the frontline workers whose focus was fighting the fires, and to look after pets that had to be left behind. We don't have enough time to name everyone, but know that we are grateful for your support, and Hay River is fortunate to have people like you in our community. A year after our last evacuation, we are once again indebted to the City of Yellowknife, the Hamlet of Enterprise, and neighboring communities for welcoming evacuees. Many of you have forfeited sleep to ensure that people from our communities had a place to go when they were forced to leave their homes. Many left home with nothing, and you welcomed them and provided for them. We are blessed to live in a territory where community has expanded meaning, where the entire territory supports each other and does whatever necessary when tragedies happen. I would also like to take the opportunity to thank my council for their support and their efforts during this emergency. Many attended the daily Community Emergency Management Committee meetings, visited the evacuation centers, and all of you found ways to contribute to this prolonged evacuation. The level of caring and selfless acts from council will never be fully realized, but know that you have my deepest gratitude for the efforts that you have made on behalf of the community. In closing, when we get notice that it is safe to bring our residents home, we will do our best to get you all home as quickly as possible. To our neighbors at Catlodeche First Nation, we want you to know that we will be here to support you as you work to recover from the devastating effects of this fire. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Wesley Steed. I'm the incident commander with Environment and Climate Change and on this fire, South Slave 005. Currently, this fire situation, I'll give you an update on that. We'll talk a little bit about how we got here. We'll talk a little bit what we're going to continue to do. Currently, the fire is about 3,200 hectares. It is listed as out of control. It means the possibility of this fire is growing is still there. Numerous buildings have been damaged in the KFN reserve, and fortunately, with from support of the local fire department in Hay River, there was no fires other than spot fires that were in Hay River, and they did a great job helping out and taking care of that. Currently looking at the map you have in front of you, this fire has been challenging. You'll see the perimeter of the fire. The area closest to Catlodeche and along the highway or the access road to Catlodeche has been, we've done very well in blacklining on the west side of this fire and making sure we've had no additional structure loss in Catlodeche. The areas that we've been working on and spending a lot of our time on is that side to definitely make sure that the community is safe and is getting there. We're not there yet. There's also a lot of our crews and dozers. So we've made a dozer guard around control line of dozer guards around the community, around the perimeter, that we're trying to tie in later today. On top of that, we've had our fire crews working diligently around in different areas of the fire. Currently, we're spending a lot of our efforts on the not only blacklining and taking care of the area closest to the community and communities, but we're spending a lot of our efforts right now and our energies getting around on the east side of the fire. There's a lot of fuel and it's extremely dry conditions. The hazard to not only our firefighters, but the people that are assisting us is there, but we don't put our people in places where they're unsafe. So we are working hard to put a line around this fire and contain it. We've had a couple of good days. We've been fortunate that we haven't seen a lot of growth on this fire in the last couple days. But there's still work to do. I want to show you how we got here. Change the next slide. So on the overnight, on Sunday to Monday, you'll see the first slide on the left-hand side. That's taken from about 1 p.m. The fire, if you look at how that's drawn out, the brighter orange sections means the most intense parts of the fire. That day was extremely challenging. The temperatures on May 15th, which started earlier in that evening with extreme winds, it was causing this fire to move rapidly into the community of Catlodeche and then spotting into the town of Hay River. This is Monday, the middle of the afternoon. The weather conditions were extremely challenging. For this time of year, to have maximum temperatures of 25 degrees, relative humidity in the low 20%, and winds blowing from the south-southeast, 20 gusting to 30 or 40 kilometers an hour, put some real challenges. And thank goodness your administration took steps to do what they had to do to protect their people. This pushed the fire in many different ways. We had swirling winds, different winds from different directions. It's challenged our lines. You'll see the fire's expansion, which is taken from, that image is taken from about 1 p.m. on Wednesday, May 17th. Again, a very tough, hot, dry day. That day again, temperatures were in the low 20s. RH's, relative humidity, around 20%. No precipitation. And just so you know, we're not expecting any. We've got challenging days ahead of us. That day, the 17th to the 18th, the wind shifted overnight. And we had strong northeast winds pushing that fire. Now, the fortunate things, we had established some lines, but it broke some of our lines. We had a lot of air tanker support, we had a lot of helicopter support, and we had to move our dozers out of the way. And the crews, because their safety is paramount in their efforts to challenge this fire. The Saturday, you'll see the Saturday, you see where our growth has been recently. We've been able to reestablish our lines, and our crews have been diligently working to do that. The weekend, 19th, I think it was a weekend, the 19th, 20th, 21st, our efforts on the west side and our efforts on the south side, north side, have been able to contain it from spreading and causing any more damage to any homes or parts of the communities. But as you can see in that picture, the fire challenged us on the east side, and it continues to do so. That is where we've been spending a lot of our resources, as I mentioned earlier. The effort to, and that is where we're spending our time right now, is working to reduce and contain this fire on the east side. I'll go to slide 3 if we can. So over the last few days, we've been throwing everything we have at this fire. Crews, dozers, helicopters, air tankers. Unbelievable support from the communities. The community of Hay River, community of Cattle Deche, their fire departments have been helping. And the people of those communities have been more than understanding and supportive of what we're doing. But as I mentioned earlier, paramount to for us as an incident commander is our crews and the people that work so hard to put this fire out or put it under control. We're not there yet. Your continued support is incredible, and we want to get there. If we can't do our job, or if we are unable to work at this job safely, then it means that it's not ready for people to have people in it. We've got work to do still, and we need to be able to continue working. And when we see that it's safe for our firefighters, then we know it'll be safe for the community of Hay River. I know Cattle Deche's got a lot more things to deal with. So, and our thoughts and concerns for that community are there and with the people of that community. So, to the town of Hay River, we're doing our best to keep this fire and get this fire to a position of being held. And I hope I can bring you that good news in the next couple of days. Thank you.
Right, the Director of Protective Services and Fire Chief of Hay River. I'm just going to run through the initial response that we did and the following day after. Then I'll go over what activities we've been doing since those days. So on May 14th, their fire department responded to the incident in Cattle Deche in the afternoon. It was the third brush fire that we had responded to that day. It was very dry conditions out. This particular fire was deep in the woods, which made it difficult for our equipment to access. ECC's wildland ground crews were basically on scene at the same time as us and starting to action the fire. And a helicopter was on scene bucketing shortly after that. At that point, the scene was turned over to ECC and we returned back to the hall. Later that evening, things started to look worse with large smoke plumes and crowning fires running towards Cattle Deche. We touched base with ECC's duty officer and found out it had jumped the cat guard and its wind directions were heading to the town of Hay River. We started to get reports of embers dropping into town between the airport and the graveyard. These embers can carry a couple kilometers in those winds. We didn't know what the impact of the town was going to be. All we knew was we had a big fire that was burning towards us. It could spot across the river, and it did all night. And we had crews out there all night putting out hotspots on the riverbank, on properties, on the airport property as well. May 15th, we had some pretty major winds forecasted to push right on Hay River. We had winds 25 gusting up to 40 kilometers an hour. Because of that, we had every water truck in town. We had pumps set up in the woods, moving water. We had fire trucks hooked up to hydrants. We're using our monitors to throw water at it all day. And even with all this, we had spot fires kicking up all over the area by Riverview Drive. We even had spot fires as far as Cranberry that we had seen during patrols. Luckily, we were able to get them all out, and the winds changed that evening, which cleared the pressure off of us. The activities that we've been doing since those days, we've been keeping informed by attending ECC's briefings and meetings with the incident. The fire department has been doing 24-hour monitoring of the town, and we have actioned some flare-ups also on Cat Ladici on some night patrols. The 23 Hay River Fire Department members that are still here have been briefed twice a day on the incident and are on standby for any calls that come up. We were supporting KFN in the early days after the fires there with some structural fire suppression in their town. We have also had some members helping out with rescuing dogs in our town and in KFN. We had the Public Works Department go home by home and put sprinklers on top of everyone's house along the riverbank from McBrien down to Miron Drive. We did some fuel reduction in Fraser Place development and behind Morin Crescent to create a fire break, and we also placed some sprinklers in there for some structural protection. ECC has provided us with a Trident water system that has been set up with 39 sprinklers, watering down the large fuels out at Fraser Place as a mitigation effort. The town has also been capping the entire dump with dirt, doing some tire mitigation out at the landfill to reduce the risk of a fire at our landfill. And we've also identified 5 fire smart projects that we've been actioning to strengthen our town's defenses for the incident and throughout the summer. We've been working really hard to protect our town in every way possible so that everyone can come home to their home. And we had some pretty hairy days early on, but I'm happy to say that we've not had any structural loss or damages to date. That's due to the hard work of Hay River Fire Department volunteers, several businesses supporting us with water trucks and equipment during those days, and the assistance from ECC on this fire. That's all I have for the update.
Good afternoon or evening. I'm Glenn Smith. I'm the Senior Administrative Officer for the Town of Hay River and Emergency Coordinator for the Community Emergency Management Committee. I'm going to present to you some information on our community reentry plan. To start, what is a reentry plan? It's a plan that helps to ensure a safe and structured reopening of the community. The plan itself identifies how decisions are made to lift the evacuation order, and it identifies conditions necessary for reentry. Also identifies in our plan some post-entry controls that will be used to address the risks that remain through a fire that will likely continue to be active throughout the summer. The stages are identified in the plan for restoration of services and the reentry of the public. It includes activities and conditions for residents and organizations to consider when they do return home, and for businesses as well who will be opening their doors. What isn't in the plan that's being presented right now is the schedule for reopening. That will be determined through ongoing meetings with our ECC and our Community Emergency Management Committee. And our officials are meeting multiple times a day to discuss those conditions and the risks and the potential for executing the schedule for the reentry plan. Yeah, we're continuing to edit this plan. It's a variable document with variable conditions that are occurring, but nonetheless, we're in a position to give you an overview of it today. I also wanted to note that KFN, who have much more detailed and short, long-term type initiatives towards reentry and recovery, this does not apply specifically to them. They will be working on their own plan and communicating it with their residents and membership. And the town of Hay River will certainly be supporting and communicating with them, given the proximities and reliance on each other. So moving into the plan, so the elements of the plan, the decision for reentry. So that decision lies with the town of Hay River, the emergency coordinator, in consultation with our emergency operations coordinator, the wildfire incident commander from ECC, the membership of our community emergency management committee. We consult with regional and territorial EMO, as well as mayor and council. So some of the current conditions for reentry, the KFN wildfire, like I mentioned, is going to be active throughout the summer. Unknown weather will impact the degree of severity of the fire and the subsequent risk to our community. Progressing the fire from its current out of control status to one that is being held with no significant growth and spread through the remaining fuel is a key condition prior to reentry. Some of the specific conditions, Wes, the incident commander from ECC, went through those earlier. But if you look at the current fire from the different perimeters, one along the north side, requiring that the fire be stabilized with low levels of remaining fuel. Along the southern perimeters, getting that west fire break completed, the southeast dozer break connected into the southwest dozer line, black lining to reduce flare-ups, and cold trailing so that the risks are not apparent in that area. Also, there's work being completed along Highway 5, scarifying and adding to a fire break there that will add to controlling risks on the south expansion. On the west side, there has been work on the fire guard, as mentioned, on the KFN access road. Once that's completed, risks will be reduced. The southwest fire break needs to be completed, and black lining to reduce flare-ups and improved access for those accessing the fire to fight it. On the Hay River side of the river, as our fire chief referred to, there's been several activities that the town of Hay River has been completed through support through business and other organizations. The mobile sprinkler systems need to be available. Our waterfront residential rooftop sprinklers deployed. We're still working through some of the fire smarting on higher risk public areas, and working through completing landfill protection, which ensuring cover materials and some of the risks out there are covered. That can be a big risk if it does get embers and flare up. And also, of course, monitoring services. So Hay River Fire Department and other systems that we're looking to monitor risks in Hay River. In addition to those controls and conditions that are being worked on now, some of the post-entry controls, re-entry controls, that will be put in place to further reduce the risks of the active fire include monitoring systems, so enhancing some of that. The likelihood that we will maintain an evacuation alert status. So what that means is that residents, when they come back to the community, they should still be prepared in case something does flare up. It could be in the heat of the summer, but being prepared to evacuate on short notice. That could be out of the community, could be with sections of the community into a local evacuation center. Those identified with special health care needs, such as those that require long-term care, supported living, those with dialysis or chronic conditions, they would be recommended to remain outside of the community to reduce those risks and the processes tied to moving and transporting if there was a need to evacuate again. Fire smarting activities, always an important activity, but more so now with the understanding of the specific risks of this fire. Property owners, when they get back, will want to be fire smarting their property to reduce risks. Removing stored wood, brush, fuels, other combustibles in accordance with good general maintenance practices and fire smarting guidelines, which we will share. In addition, the fire smarting of public properties that the town of Hay River and the GNWT are engaging and starting to complete now. In regards to the sequence for re-entry, there are multiple stages. The first stage on re-entry would be the restoration of services. So these are your essential services that are needed for a community to operate. In general, they would be given 24 hours to reinstate emergency level or basic level services. There's expectation that some services may take several days or longer for full restoration, such as health, airports, getting people into schools. But the main activities when we do issue stage 1 for the restoration of essential services is calling in staff, completing inspections and assessments, stocking any supplies, and scheduling services. Once that is restored, so we're now 24 hours after that step 1. Step 2 is now the general community re-entry. So the general public that has no special needs, they're coming in 24 hours after we allow emergency or essential services. For any evacuees that require travel assistance back into the community, transportation services and a schedule will be released. For those that have special needs, as I mentioned, in the public, such as long-term care, supportive living, and those with chronic conditions, those that are generally working with health for support services, that date would be determined on when they would come back into the community. And it is dependent on restoration of services, but also the current conditions of the fire, risks, smoke conditions, etc. Air transport is needed as well to ensure safe access or safe exit if needed, and working on the airport with the ECC who will be doing fire attacks. When you return to your home and the reopening of businesses and public buildings, at this time, there's no thought fire-related damage to Hay River properties within the communities and key infrastructure. And as such, it's going to be very limited repair and recovery activities that would be needed. However, there's several conditions to consider by residents and property owners, and we will send out more information, or other government departments will send that out. For the re-entry process, again, the schedule is to be determined. But hoping within the planning schedule that we'll have that released this week. Thank you.